Hey, how y'all doing out there in internet land? This is the Lone Irishman. I apologize for not making a video. I've got a couple comments that y'all were concerned that the devil people finally got me. Um, I live by the grace of God, and the only thing you can assume about a broken down old man is like me is that I'm a survivor. And if it wasn't, this computer's been giving me grief all morning. Is that I'm a survivor and I live but by the grace of God, go I. I wanted to mention that since I've moved where I currently live, they've made, I don't know, 3 or 4 attempts, a couple of them serious. One they farmed out to a local, some gangbangers. One time when I first moved out here, I bought an RV and I was living in an RV, and they came at me, and thankfully I had some guns, and I let them know that if they came in my RV I was going to blast them. And then I moved into a trailer park, and then they farmed, I'm assuming this network of devil people, devil worshippers, they farmed out some harassment to a biker gang called the Banditos. And I let them know that when they come at me, I moved from there, and I moved out into a farm, and I'm out here, and realistically, I just go day by day by the grace of God. So I want to thank you again for being patient in waiting for my next video. I know it's been over a month. I've had some health problems and some family problems. I have these bone spurs in my neck that is crushing my spinal cord. And eventually, if I don't get some surgery, I'm going to be paralyzed. So for you Christians out there, you could pray for me, because I'm in agony often. And it's not a fun situation to be in, but that's it. So, to continue the story where I left off, I was in Chico, California. Let's see, going through my stuff, I found this. Let's see if you could read this. Okay, the Haven Inn of Chico. I kept a few mementos. See if you can read that. See, that was the motel I was in before I got an apartment. I was out there for 3 weeks in January 2012. So to kind of recap, these people came at me. They let me know that, in order for me to join their coven or cult or whatever, and receive the fruits or the rewards of, I had my brother. I had one extant copy of my screenplay. A few of you have commented and asked about it. Well, I wrote some notes on here, but here it is, 13 years later. Okay, I burned all the other copies. My brother actually had one, and he mailed it to me. He says, well, you wrote it, it's part of you. I want it out of my house, frankly, is what he told me. So to say all that, I was stuck in a position where these people came at me. They told me that I was going to, in order to join them, I was going to have to sacrifice children or babies and drink blood and all that mayhem. And frankly, excuse my French, my attitude was, kiss my Irish ass. I've never hurt a child, never will. And frankly, those that do deserve death, frankly. But let God take care of them. People like that, are less than human, frankly. And, I believe that God allowed me in my backslidden state to get so far out there that, away from Him, that He allowed me, He pulled back the veil, so to speak, and allowed me to see the devil's camp and what these people were about and who they were. And they were the most wicked and evil, depraved people I've ever met. And I'm grateful to be in a place where, I have Christian friends out here, and, I'm safe. And frankly, I don't go out much, but that's okay. You know, like I said, they came at me when I first moved out here. They came at me. They farmed it. There was actually two attempts on my life when I first moved out here. I guess they farmed it out to a street gang. When I say two attempts, I mean gunplay. Thankfully, no one was hurt or I wasn't shot or anything, but there was some gunplay involved. And then when I left the town I was in, I thought I was safe. I went up, to a kind of remote area, my RV, and they came at me there. And from there, I went to an RV park and through the Banditos motorcycle gang, some affiliates, they let me know in no uncertain terms. We know who you are. You think you can get away from us, you can't. Shortly thereafter, I left there and I moved out and deeper into the country, and then I moved again. But yeah, they've any move that I make. For example, my brother and sister live back east, and on a bus trip back in October, they came at me in Ohio. Actually, twice in Memphis and Ohio. It was insane, but it's my life. And I just rely upon the grace of God, safeties of the Lord. So back to the story. I've entitled these videos "Escape from the Hotel California." This would be Chico Part 3, and I've had some comments. We'll get to the escape part. Well, here it is. It was grapevine through the whole town of Chico that I was not going to participate and not going to join these freaks. That was never my intention in the first place. Frankly, after my father died, I went out there to work on my screenplay, and in my eventual, journey to Los Angeles, I was going to sell it and try to cash in. And being a fool that I was at the time, I thought that, well, I could get an agent and get paid and move on with my life and find a mountain compound somewhere in Colorado and, be free and clear, and live well. Well, that's not how the world works. There's the God of this world who controls, everything and everyone. When I say the God of this world, I mean little G, Lucifer. And if you're to get to a certain level of success in this world, you need to bow your knees to him. And I found that out real quick. So I was in a position where this whole town knew. They finally came at me after 3 weeks of courting me. They finally came at me. I mean, I bought a car, I bought an apartment. I was running around with all these women doing a bunch of drugs. And when I went out there, I basically went out there to kill myself on drugs and alcohol. And it was only by the grace of God that I didn't. So here I am in this apartment with this woman, Kimberly. Her name is Kimberly Lee. And I'm there with her, and when they came at me outside of a bar and said, well, here's the deal. This is the next level. You're going to have to perform a ritual, ceremony, sacrifice. And I was like, no, this ain't happening. So I went right back to the apartment, which was a beautiful apartment, brand new, everything, furnishings and everything. And Kim was waiting there for me, and she told me, I sent them to confront you about this. And then it was grapevine real quickly that I wasn't going to join their covenant or whatever. And she came at me, and as I mentioned in the last video, they brought this guy in there, and they plotted to drug me, throw me in the trunk of a car, take me out in the desert, and torture me and kill me. That was their plan. And me knowing what the plans were, this dude left. Kimberly was in the bedroom, and I had 2 jackets on, and I filled my jackets with weapons. And by the grace of God, I was able to get out of the apartment, and I got in my car and I split, and I went north from there. From Chico, Redding, California is 60, 70 miles north. And I left in the middle of the night. I drove, up into Redding. I had visited Redding. That was the original plan in the first place. When I first went out to California after my father died, I had dated and knew a girl from Redding named Trisha, and she, when I got out to California, found out through her mother that she was in prison for drugs. So I ended up getting stuck in Chico, and that's how all this, unbeknownst to me, that the whole town of, 35, 45,000 people are all, sold out to Satan. Lucky me, right? So, oh yeah, that's another thing too, is that these people, these devil worshippers, they use the word luck, good luck. And if you study the etymology of that word luck, it means good light or good lucis, which is basically an occult term for may the devil bless you. So they say that all the time. And as I mentioned in a couple other videos, they all speak in code and witch language. But on to my escape. I left in late January of 2012. I left, and I hightailed it out of there. As soon as I got to Redding, I tried to track down a couple people that I had met. I had been to Redding, I think 2.5 years before that. Was having problems with a girlfriend in New Jersey. I got on a bus, a Greyhound bus, and I met a girl and ended up in Redding and had some adventures out there. And things were kind of wild. I was drinking and doing drugs at the time. So I go to Redding and I try to track down some people that I knew there that I met, and it was evident to me that these people were looking for me. One of the first people I ran into knew who I was and what was going on. I didn't know him. It was in the parking lot of a Ralph's, I think, and or some supermarket. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get out of Redding. So not knowing where to go and having a car that's not registered, not insured, I just kept going north. I went up the 101, or whatever it was. I didn't get on the interstate, but I think I went up the 101 up there in Northern California, and I just kept going north. And I drove for 2 days, and I made it to a place called Crescent City, and it was apparent to me. I was getting texts from Kim and phone calls threatening, we're going to get you, we're going to kill you, we're after you, you got no place, you could run, but you can't hide. So I ended up pulling over along the Pacific Ocean and throwing my phone into the Pacific Ocean, because I figured they were tracking me through my phone. So I continued north, and after 2 days of traveling, I made it to Crescent City, California. And there was I believe it was called Lucky 7 Casino. It was an Indian casino. And I only pulled in there, just to get some rest. Maybe sit down, spend $20, get a beer, free beer or two. And this is how God works. I've never been a big gambler. I've never been, quote unquote lucky, in lottery or anything like that. So I walk in there, and as soon as I pull into the parking lot, 2 cars pull in behind me. And I opened the door of my car, and I stuck my foot out, and there was 4 people in each car, and they were part of this coven or their cult or whatever, and they had been following me all the way, from Chico / Redding, and it became apparent to me that they were waiting for me whether to continue driving or get out of the car. And I just shrugged my shoulders, and they were making comments. I kind of overheard them. And I got out of the car, and I went in the casino, and I sat down and popped $20 into an Alien, Sigourney Weaver movie, Alien, slot machine, and I end up just, you know, hitting these buttons, max bet, bonus round. I walked out of there with $1,400 bills, and trust me, that's never happened. That's never happened to me, and that was, it was awesome because that was my running money, and I didn't know where I was going other than I was trying to get as far away from these people as possible. And I eventually knew, not having insurance and no registration and all, I eventually knew, knowing California and then going into Oregon, that I was eventually going to get pulled over and lose the car. I was just trying to get as far away as humanly possible. Problem was what I later realized is that, most of California and the West Coast and the Oregon and Washington State is highly populated by devil worshippers, Satanists, Luciferians, Wiccans, whatever, and they're entrenched out there. I'm not dare to say that, there's not God-fearing, godly people. God has them everywhere, but it was evident to me that everywhere I stopped for gas, everywhere I went, they were on me like flies on crap. So I continued in my travels and, end up staying in a motel or two. I made a few phone calls, and I had a couple run-ins with some cops. As soon as I got into Oregon, they were on me. I knew they were on me. I was trying to play cat and mouse with them. I saw a cop. I pulled in the gas station. He was waiting there for me, and I waited a while, and it was only by the grace of God that I was able to kind of slip by him. But I knew that was, they were taking it to the next level. They were trying to get me, without some wheels, trying to get my car taken away from me. So I got that money from the Crescent City Casino. Okay, so I'm just going north. I don't know, in my mind, I got into Oregon, never been there before in my life. I stopped to get gas, and they're, as I'm in line, it's a store, they're making comments, about me, saying, oh, he should have stayed in Tennessee, or he should have whatever. And I knew I was in big trouble, and I was just running for my life. So eventually I made it to a town. I got off, I went past, I was on these secondary roads. I was going over mountains in this 75 Nova. And remember, it was late January. I go over this mountain. It was snow, and it was just a mess. But I made it to Bend. And I don't know what possessed me to go to Bend. I thought maybe there was some Christians there. I thought maybe, Bend would be a good place to kind of lay low and hide out. Well, no. I made it to Bend, and I was in Bend for 20 minutes, and I was pulled over by the cops. And without insurance, they towed my car. So here I am, stuck in Bend, okay, with no car, and Bend is on the other side of a mountain. It's a mountain town. There's nothing out there, and these people came at me out there, and I holed up in a motel room for a week. And thankfully, I got a hold of a friend in New Jersey, and I assumed rightly that they were bugging, my phone calls from the motel room, which they were. And I told my friend from New Jersey, I told him, I figured I was dead, and I figured it would be the last time. He's like a brother to me. God rest his soul. His name was Steve. And actually, he died of mysterious circumstances a year ago. But that's a whole other story. So I told him that I had weapons. Okay, I later did get weapons in this story, but at that point I assumed it was better to bluff and better to let these people think that I was armed than to have them come at me and not be armed. And it worked in my favor, trust me. Because later on in the story, as I go to Los Angeles, and they actually sent a hitman after me, to capture me and kill me. They assumed that I was armed, and it was probably one of the smartest decisions I made, was calling my friend, sitting in a motel room, getting drunk on vodka, and as as the time passed, I let my friend know that I had, a 9mm and a 357 Magnum, and that I was not hesitant to use it on these fools. So, that worked in my favor. So I ended up stuck in Bend for a week, and I'm in this motel room. I don't know where to go. I'm like in a bad way. I'm in a motel room. I'm peeking out the window. I'm being watched. I'm being monitored. And remember, I'm in a mountain town. There's no public transportation. There's no buses or trains or anything to get me the heck out of there. So eventually I made this decision to leave. And having never been to Salem or Portland or Seattle, I assumed, probably rightly so, that if I had gone north, they would have came at me there. And being under duress and being under so much stress, I didn't know what else to do. And having, and then that was another thing too, is that I waited a week in Bend trying to get my car back. I got insurance while I was there. I tried to get my car out of impound, and I was told that it was going to go up for auction and all this other mess. It was just a mess. So I waited there a week trying to get my car back. Finally, I realized that was a dead end. So I got a ride, a shuttle bus or something, a taxi, I don't know. I got a ride to an Amtrak train station, Amtrak train, and I took the train south. God only knows why. I had some friends in Phoenix, and that was my plan. My plan was that if I can get to Phoenix, I can get some help. So, but the problem was being way up there in Oregon, I had to take the Amtrak train all the way back down into California, into Los Angeles, and then take the train or bus or whatever from Phoenix. There was no Amtrak train, I don't even think there was a Greyhound bus station in Bend. So I was stuck. So as I'm on the train, it became evident to me that they were on the train. I was being watched. Never forget, there was this clown that had a black sweat jacket that had the Church of Satan emblazoned all over the thing. And I was just like praying to God, please, just help me, get me out of this, get me, and in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't went to Los Angeles, but I was trying to get the heck out of there. I was trying to, I at that point, I was just running on adrenaline and just pure, panic mode. So, and here on top of everything, I'm running out of money. So I figured if I can get to Los Angeles, I have enough money to get back to the East Coast, okay, where I had people, where I had friends. But my backup plan was that if I could make it to Phoenix, where I had lived back in the early 90s, I knew some people there. And my plan was to get to Phoenix and to get some guns. If they were still after me in Phoenix, then I could defend myself and go on from there. So I took this train all the way to Los Angeles, and knowing my Achilles heel, they set a beautiful girl on me. She called herself Summer Rainbow. Yeah, wink, wink, right? And this girl was gorgeous. I'm talking like movie star gorgeous. You know, young girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, and she came at me, and you know what? You know, and then we're getting off the train for cigarette breaks, and you know, there's people taking pictures of me, but I start chatting up this girl, you know, and she told me she's going to Los Angeles, and she's like, hey, let's party, you know, and in the back of my mind, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, nah, this isn't a setup. Nah, she's just some normal girl, you know what I mean? I need, at that point in time, you know, being backslidden like I was, I'm like, you know what, I need some R&R, if you know what I mean. In my mind, I'm like, you know what, this would be fun, hanging out, partying with this girl for a day, you know, you know, just kind of getting recharged, so to speak, and then moving on. Well, no, you know, I was fooling myself, and she was part of them, sent there to seduce me, and to get me trapped up, and to get me, you know, get me to a place where, you know, I would literally be surrounded by them. Gosh. So I get to Los Angeles, I get her phone number, she tells me she lives in Venice, right? So I get a motel room that first night, and these people are everywhere, you know, taxi drivers, motel clerks, whatever. I just feel their presence, you know, and I'm just completely on edge. But something in my mind, I'm like, you know what, let me go to Venice. Let me, you know, try to find some weed or something to chill out, you know, whatever. Let me go there and find this girl. She can't, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no possible way she could be part of you know, these people or whatever. You know, boy, was I wrong. So, like a lemming, like an idiot, and you got to remember, at that point, I had been on the run for almost 2 weeks. So I wasn't using, you know, much logic at that point. You know, I was just like a rabbit running in circles from wolves. You know, so I go to Venice. That's a whole, you know, I want to get into it, and I'll get into it in my next video, but in more detail, okay, because it was hairy and it was scary. It was some serious business. I follow this girl to Venice, okay. I meet her down there. She tells me that she's living in a a hostel, and she says, yeah, a hostel like the movie, you know. And I says, yeah, like art imitating life, imitating art. Yeah, you know, I knew at that point, and I'm like, you know, I had been so stressed out and been through so much up to that point where I was like, you know, this can't be happening to me. You know, this is movie stuff. You know, this cannot be happening to me. So once I got to Venice, interestingly enough, I went to a bar on the boardwalk, and I met the member of Metallica remained anonymous, but I met his wife at a bar, who you know, she was chatting me up, and she invited me to a party that night. If you know Metallica, one of the members of Metallica has roots in Venice, so you figure it out. So at any rate, yeah, and she was gorgeous, by the way. So, you know, I'm sitting there chatting her up. She leaves. And slowly I realize that as I'm, you know, I get a big hamburger platter and I'm drinking beers and shots at this place, I'm realizing that I'm being poisoned by some psychoactive substance. You know, I later conferred with someone who was familiar with, you know, witches' brews and poisons. It could have been belladonna or whatever. You know, it was something to akin that it caused confusion. It almost was like if your brain's a clock, it slowed your brain down to the point where, you know, it wasn't necessarily like a roofie or a Xanax where it would black you out, or it was strange. It just caused me to lose my sense of direction and my sense of, where I was going and how to get out of there. And I'll get into the next video. I just wanted to make this video to let y'all know that I'm alive and well. I know a lot of y'all who've subscribed to my channel have been waiting patiently, and I apologize. I've had some family issues and some health issues, and I've had a heck of a time with this stupid Logitech camera and my computer working, but that's par for the course, But yeah, so I get down to Venice, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. They drugged me, and that was where I ran into John. And John apparently came from Los Angeles to he claimed to be a hitman. I mean, the guy was armed, and he was wearing a bulletproof vest under his jacket, and he was the real deal. And when we first met, it was wild. It was like we were two prize fighters, sizing each other up. And because I was drugged, and there's a lot more, into that. I couldn't get rid of this guy. He was following me around. And at that point, it had gotten dark in Venice, and the streets of Venice, California are like a maze. And I'm walking in circles, and I'm trying to get away from this guy. And, finally, it was just nuts. It was nuts. But I'll get into that. I'd like to get into that whole ordeal in Venice in a little bit more detail, because it was harrowing. It was insane, and like I said, this is just the beginning. Kind of wrap this up and give you kind of a little preview. I escaped John. Okay, I had been drugged. I escaped John, and it got to the point that anything and everything that they were trying. Any place I went, they were trying to poison me. Any bars, any restaurants, especially in Venice there. And then when I got to the Greyhound station, they were trying to poison me there. John actually not met me face to face, but he was going back to Vegas, because ultimately, once I was able to leave Los Angeles, their plan was to get me to Vegas, set me up with the cops with a drug dog, throw me in the back of a van, take me out to the desert in Vegas, scalp me, chop my head off, whatever. And that wasn't happening. And I was in such a state at that point that I actually thought of flipping the Greyhound bus. And now that, of course, sounds insane, but under the circumstances, there was, no children on the bus, and that's a whole other story. It was completely insane. The bus was filled with killers. It was a late night bus out of Los Angeles, and I was on my way all the way back east, and I had used my last money to get back there. And it became apparent to me they were so bold and so proud of their plan that they were letting me know what they were going to do right in front of me while I was waiting for the bus in Los Angeles. They're on the phone going, yeah, he's here, and we got him, and he can't escape, and once we get to Vegas, he's done. We got the cops, and they're on board, and yeah, he's toast. And it was insane. And but I'll in my next video, I apologize again. I'll try to make more videos now that my neck's feeling better. I'll try to make more videos, so I'll get into my Venice, what all went down in Venice, detail by detail, how I escaped from Venice, and then got back to downtown Los Angeles, got on a Greyhound bus. I didn't make it to Vegas, because I knew if I made it to Vegas, I was dead. And of course, by the grace of God, the Spirit of God, told me, "Thou shalt not kill." I wasn't going down like that. I had, you know, I was in such a state that, like I said, I was not going down like that. I'd rather flip a Greyhound bus. We were doing 90 miles an hour going down a mountain. And, of course, I'm not a maniac, you know, but in such a state and position like that, if the alternative was, going off a cliff or, being tortured to death out in the desert in Nevada, and having, no women and children on that bus. And that was a crazy thing, too. Think about it. This is post 9/11. This is downtown Los Angeles. They were waving everybody through the security. Okay, there was no security. Okay, nothing. Okay, no metal detectors, nothing. They were waving everybody through. So I knew, and then while I was there, I was overhearing them talk. They were trying to get me to smoke drugs. They were trying to get me to eat at the little cafeteria there, to drug me more. They were within earshot. Oh, he knows. I refused everything and anything from these people. At that point, after having been drugged the night before in Venice, it was a nightmare. But I got, but that's later on in the story. I got off in San Bernardino, and the good Lord told me to get off that bus. I knew if I made it to Vegas, I was dead. So I got off the bus, and that's when I found out that they had tracking devices on me. I'm assuming one was in my Chase bank card that I had gotten, while I was in California. And I'm assuming one was in my clothes. They had two different ones, and that's later in the story. But it gets deep. It gets deep. I finally, like I said in a little preview, I never thought I'd make it out of California alive. And I finally made it to Phoenix. And in Phoenix, I called in a favor from some people, some heavy people that I knew from New Jersey, and I called in a favor. And by the grace of God, they came and they helped me get out of Phoenix. And once they came, I was able to get out, escape Phoenix, and and then I had some trouble in Dallas. I had to jump out of a second-story window. I was almost killed in a railway yard, in Dallas. But once I got out of Dallas and kept moving east, the Spirit of the Lord told me that, not to fear, for I have many people in this city, where I eventually ended up. But I hope, like I said, this was kind of a brief overview. I've been in a lot of pain, and I've had a lot of things going on, and I'm eventually going to get into detail about especially what went down in Venice. When I left Los Angeles, I ended up going through got off the bus, hid from these people in San Bernardino, then I ended up in Hesperia, California, then I ended up in Barstow, and then from Barstow I made it to Phoenix. These people were after me in Phoenix for a week, and that was crazy. That was insane, because it just got heavier and heavier, and once I got some help and I got a gun, and I had a friend, I didn't even know the guy, but he knew people that I knew back east, and, I was like, hey man, I got these devil worshippers after me, you have to help me. I need your help, man. And they were waiting there for me, the Tempe, Arizona train station. And while I was in Phoenix, I ended up walking. You ever hear the expression, having blisters on your blisters? I walked 25 miles across the whole city of Phoenix, trying to get a hold of some people that I knew, from years before when I lived there. And, it was by the grace of God that I'm here today, and I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that safety is of the Lord. And if God be for us, who could be against us? David talked about in Psalms about being surrounded by thousands and 10,000s, and yet being, safe in the hand of the Lord. So I hope, this blessed y'all in realizing that, God is ultimately infinitely more powerful than the devil ever will be, or can be. I hope I said that right. But I hope you enjoy this video. I'm sorry, I'm kind of, my bottom chin's kind of cut off here, but, like I said, I'm having problems with this stupid computer today. I didn't feel like messing with it. So I hope you enjoyed this. God bless, and sure to make more videos soon as I get into the escape. And also wanted to mention too, while I was in that apartment, leaving the night that I left Chico, Jesus spoke to my heart and told me essentially that I was his lost sheep, and that I was in the midst of wolves and they were ready to devour me, and that if I followed him and trusted him unequivocally, that he was going to get me out of it. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, it got to the point where I was no longer trusting in Sean. I had to put my trust and faith in God. And as you see here, I'm alive and well, and doing all right. So, well, God bless y'all. Hope you enjoyed this, and hope to make some more videos soon. Thanks.